the exact words from a source. But in many circumstances, if you put it in your own words, there's nothing specific about the wording that you want to demonstrate, then you should practice putting it into your own words. So another aspect of that is that in doing the work to do the paraphrase, you actually will learn more about what you're trying to say. So the cognitive work, the mental work that we're doing when we do paraphrasing helps to actually kind of solidify that knowledge in our brains, and it makes it easier for us to understand and then explain those ideas. So that's a great reason to do it. Another reason to do it is that it improves the sort of flow and structure of your paper. So, if you imagine a paper that's just a list of quotations, right? A whole bunch of quotations. Sometimes when students are first learning to write, this is a common problem that I see. So I'll get a paper and it's just full of quotations. And if you think of that from the reader's perspective, that's not a very fun or informative thing to read. So it gets tiring just reading a whole bunch of quotations and not being given enough context to understand why those quotations are there, how they relate to each other, how they relate to the topic. Paraphrasing allows you to integrate that material into the flow of your writing. And that's really important for having a paper that's easy to read, that's enjoyable to read. Sometimes we don't really think about this with writing, but when you're in school, one thing that you're trying to do is please your professor, right? You want your professor to be happy with your work. And it's important that, your professor's a human being, they're a person. And it's important that you make your writing as enjoyable as possible. Yes, it should be correct, it should be well supported, but it should also be easy to read. So that's part of what we're doing when we're paraphrasing it. We're sort of improving that flow and structure of our paper. It also allows us to, so sometimes we might have several different sources that are saying similar things, and we want to synthesize those, integrate those together into our paper. If we just listed 3 different quotations from 3 different sources, we're not showing that work of that we've done to see the relationship between these ideas. Whereas if we paraphrase and integrate those 3 sources together into one paragraph or one sentence, and then give our citations, within that paraphrase, we're able to demonstrate that we saw those different connections. So that's a sort of brief list of different reasons why paraphrasing is important. I think that maybe number one thing that I'll re-emphasize, though, is that as a student, the most important part of it is that it allows you to demonstrate your strength as a writer. Okay, so how do we paraphrase? This is kind of a 5-step process to check whether you've done all the things that you need to do basically in your paraphrasing. So first, you want to read a source thoroughly. That's typically what you're trying to do when you're trying to find support for a claim that you're making in a paper. Find the parts that are most relevant to what you're trying to say, the points that support you. Then put the paper away when you're trying to think about starting the paraphrase. Because what you're doing when you're paraphrasing, again, is putting something in your own words. If you try to paraphrase while you're looking directly at the original source, it's easy to accidentally replicate too closely what you're trying to say. So a great tool to make sure that your paraphrase is not too close to the original source is to take this second step of jotting down those ideas in your own words while not looking at that original source. Keep it, somewhere where you can refer to it later, but try to give that paraphrase or start writing the ideas of that paraphrase down without looking at that source. Try to remember, recall, and explain it in a way that if you were just talking to a friend and you had to explain an idea from that paper to them, how would you say it in your own words? Importantly, when you're paraphrasing, a lot of times students think, okay, I should use academic words to make myself sound smarter, or I should use big words, from the thesaurus to make my paper sound more academic. But actually, we don't want to do that. Often what happens when we do that is we use words that we don't fully understand, and so the meaning is not duplicated in the way that we want it to. And it just in general makes it harder to read. So try to write out your paraphrase in the words that you would use in your daily life if you were explaining that idea to someone else. Okay, so now you have kind of your rough draft of that paraphrase. You have some notes jotted down about this idea and its meaning, right? What we're trying to do when we paraphrase is reproduce the meaning of an idea. So the meaning is the same, but it's with different words and different sentence structure, two key components. So we can't just keep the same sentence structure and find synonyms and plug them into the same sentence. That's not considered to be a good paraphrase. That's why we don't want to kind of look at the sentence while we're doing it. We want to keep the idea, we want to keep the meaning, but we're going to change the structure of how it's written and use our own words, the words that we would naturally use to summarize that idea. Okay. So then we are writing up our draft. We're incorporating those ideas. We refer to the notes that we jotted down while we were not looking at that original source. We type up that draft. And then afterwards, once we've got that first draft done, we go back and look at the places where we paraphrased. And we'll know where they are because we're going to create citations to go along with them. So whenever you paraphrase, remember, we have to have a citation. So you'll know where your paraphrases are because there should be a citation that goes with it. We go back to where we did those paraphrases, and then we look back to that original source. And we say, okay, is the meaning the same? I was looking away and I was trying to, create this content with my own voice and my own words. I'm now comparing it back to the original. Did I actually reproduce that idea? At that point, then you can make any changes necessary to make sure that the meaning is exactly the same as what you were trying to do. And then importantly, make sure that your citations and references are correct. We have workshops on creating citations and references, and you can also come to see us in the writing services if you want more information about that. We don't have time to cover all of that today. If we have time for questions at the end, we can briefly talk about that. But citing and referencing is a super, super important point of paraphrasing. Okay, so let's look at an example so that we can make sure we're understanding. So this is that compare with the original. So imagine that we have this quote here that we're trying to paraphrase. So this is from a study about how, what do they call them? Therapy dogs, about how therapy dog programming can help reduce stress for international students. So it's from a paper about that. So here's the quote that we've selected, let's imagine, for our paper. So it says, participants reported feeling a reduction in stress and moreover recognized that stress negatively impacted their ability to learn a new language. So we want to ask, when we go to our paraphrase, is it the same meaning? Does it have a different sentence structure? So are the words arranged in a different way, or the meanings arranged? The structure is arranged in a different way, but the meaning is maintained. And did we use our synonyms efficiently or correctly to capture that same meaning? So here's an example of a possible way that this could be paraphrased to maintain the meaning, but use a different structure and different words. So we have a comment here. We have the same example for yesterday's session too. Okay, yeah, we love the therapy dog research at the writing services. There's a lot of big fans of animals. Okay, so here's our paraphrase. Therapy dog programming helped international students who were learning English to alleviate the stress that made language acquisition more challenging. So you can see what we've done here with this paraphrase is provide some of the context that's needed to understand the meaning, because the person who's reading our paper hasn't read the paper, right? So we had to add in this part, therapy dog programming, helping international students, because that wasn't in the original quote, even though it was from that paper. So we've given that context, which is really important, but we've maintained the meaning. It's, the same subject. So the participants of the study, which were international students, we've included in our paraphrase, and the topic, which was stress. How did therapy dog programming relate to their stress? So we have all those same parts in our paraphrase, but they're arranged differently and they're using slightly different words. So that is an example of a good paraphrase. Okay. Just 1 second here. My mouse is going wonky. There we go. Okay. Now, remember, we have to add that reference after, so we have to make sure that we add the citation, the full citation, when we give the paraphrase, and then we have to include our reference in our references section. Okay, so let's do a quick knowledge check to make sure we're understanding this. So my paraphrase will be strongest if there's 3 options here. A, I use a thesaurus or ChatGPT to find the most impressive academic language possible. B, it's significantly longer than the original so that I can fully explain the idea. Or C, it is concise and gives the reader background information they need to understand the evidence being shared. Okay, so we've got a couple of C's coming in. Any other thoughts? C is the correct answer. C is the correct answer. Now, I'm not saying that in saying this that there's a lot of discussion about AI tools. I'm not going to really talk about that in this session because that would be a whole other session. But I'm not saying that there's no possible way to use AI tools for these purposes. However, you have to have your professor's consent specifically for that task and that assignment. So just that's a caution for everybody. Okay, so let's test our knowledge a bit about this concept of keeping the same meaning. So here's that original quote, a different one on the same topic. There is some evidence of the helpful nature of stress reduction through therapy dog programming among university students. Which one would be the most accurate paraphrase? Keeps the same meaning. B, yeah, B. Good. Does anyone want to say why they think B is a better paraphrase?
Professor, may I? Mm-hmm. So in A, it says eliminate anxiety for post-secondary students. So the original phrases, there is some evidence of the helpful nature of stress reduction.
Yeah.
It's not talking about eliminating, it's talking about reducing it. So,
exactly, yeah.
And we need to give a positive impact, not a negative one. So we are using words like benefit and alleviating stress instead of using eliminate and anxiety, which gives a bit of I would say, not that, positive impact to the reader.
Good. These are all really good points. This first one is making a much stronger claim about proven and eliminating. And that's really not what the original source was saying. And yes, someone else says anxiety is not mentioned. There's a difference between stress and anxiety. So we want to always be careful. This is the real challenge of paraphrasing. This is why I say it's a skill. It's hard. It's something you have to develop over time because maintaining the meaning while keeping the same words can be a challenge. So it's something that may take some practicing, which is okay, that's part of the writing process. Okay, perfect. Okay, as I said, I'm not really going to talk too much about ChatGPT, although we may have a few minutes for questions or other Gen AI. But just be cautious of use of those. There are many tools that will paraphrase for you, but they're not always reliable for a lot of different reasons, and they are detectable by Turnitin and other sources. So you want to be really sure that you're protecting yourself as a student and being really careful to know how you're permitted to use these tools. Okay, that's our general overview. We're getting close to our time. I'll just tell you a little bit about writing services. So I'm a consultant with writing services. There's 5 of us consultants. And if you want to do more work with paraphrasing, you want to do some practicing, you want to bring in an assignment where you're trying to do some paraphrasing and you're not sure if it's quite working, you can make an appointment with us at Writing Services. So you can just go to the library homepage. You'll see a section for appointments there. You can come in for a 45-minute or a 25-minute appointment. You can show us what you're working on, talk it through with us. You can talk about citation and referencing, really anything related to writing. That's what we do. That's what we're very excited to talk to you about. We also offer workshops on lots of different things. So citation and referencing, writing a paper, like sort of structural questions related to writing papers, basic grammar. So you can check those out in the Student Success portal under the workshop section. And then we also do a virtual drop-in every day from 10 to 11, and you can come enter that at any point. It's in the same place where you would book up an appointment with Writing Services. And there you can come and just ask a quick question. It's kind of a first come, first serve situation. So yeah, and you can do 1 appointment per week with Writing Services. So that's an awesome service to take advantage of. I mean, I think so anyways. So yeah, you should come see us if you have any more questions. Does anyone have any quick questions before we wrap up about paraphrasing or anything else that has come up for them? Okay, no questions, that's okay. Hopefully we gave you a good overview today, and yeah, please come see us if you ever need any help with anything related to writing. And good luck, and I hope you get some good relaxing time a little bit over your reading week this week. You're welcome. Have a good day. Bye.